Okay, Bruchim Abayim. Thank you for joining us. I am filling in for Rabbi Yusewitz, who is away for a family. We are starting a new sefer, the second sefer of the Yad HaChazaka. Before we start, I want to read from the Hagdama, from the Minyan HaMitzvahs of the Rambam, where he discusses the various svarim that how he categorized the mitzvahs into svarim, and in there you can see also why each sefer is called what it's called and what kind of mitzvahs are included in it. It's kedai before you start a sefer, you go back and refresh your memory. The Rambam writes the following: Sefer Sheni, the Echul Bay is called a mitzvah shem tediresh and it's tavinu b'hem. Rambam says, I will include in this sefer all the constant mitzvahs which we are commanded to perform. The purpose of these mitzvahs and the consequence of these mitzvahs is that it brings us to love Hashem and to be aware of Hashem, to remember Hashem constantly. Included in this category are the mitzvahs of Krias, Shema, Tefillah, Tefillin, Birchas Kehanim, Milah, Bechlal. Milah is included here because it is a physical a sign in our flesh, Lahazker Tamid, and it stays with us constantly, reminds us constantly of our connection and our love to the Eibishter and His love for us. Even in circumstances where we are not able to be wearing tefillin or tzitzis because we're in a mikveh or in a swimming pool or in a time of day or night when there is no tzitzis, a person the bris is literally constantly with us. And reminds us of Hashem's love and our love for Hashem. Ukarasi Shem Sefer Zeh Sefer Ahava. The name of the Sefer is Ahava. And so we begin Sefer Ahava. Like every Sefer, the Rambam begins Sefer Ahava with a pasuk. Ma ahavti terasecha b'kol hayom hisichasi. How I love your Torah, says David HaMelech in Tehillim Kuf Yutes. All day it is the subject of my speech, it is the content of my speech. Sefer Sheni was Sefer Abba. This is the second book. It is called Sefer Abba. Hilchos of Sheish. It includes 6 categories, 6 sections of halacha. The Zehu Siduran. They include the following and in the following order: Hilchos Krias Shema, Hilchos Tefillah, Birchas Kehanim, Hilchos Tefillin Umezuzah, the Sefer Torah, Hilchos Tzitzis, Hilchos Berech Brachos, Hilchos Milah, the laws of Shema, the laws of davening, and Birchas Kehanim, the laws of Tefillin, Mezuzah, and Sefer Torah, the laws of Tzitzis, the laws of Brachos, and the laws of Milah. We begin with Hilchos Krias Shema, which has one mitzvah saseh, mitzvah saseh achas, so he likres Krias Shema pamayim b'yom. The mitzvah deraisa is to say Shema, to read Shema twice a day. Be'er mitzvahs zu b'parakim elu. This mitzvah will be explained in the following Prakim. Hilchos Krias Shema has 4 Prakim. Perek Rishon Halacha Aleph. Pa'amayim b'chol yom kodim Krias Shema. So the mitzvah is twice a day. Every day we read Krias Shema be'erev u'ba'boker. It's not any time throughout the day or twice consecutively, just immediately one after the other, but rather once in the evening and once in the morning. Right? The Torah starts the day by erev by boker. So the first Krias Shema is actually Krias Shema Shel Arvis, and then we do another one once the sun has risen, and we'll define that later. In the morning we read Krias Shema Shel Shachar Shenemar. Where's the source for this mitzvah? In Shema itself we say it uveshachbecha uvekumecha, when you lie down and when you awaken. So here you see again erev and boker, erev being first and then boker, so sleeping first and then waking. It doesn't mean that when you are going to sleep, even let's say you're staying up all night, you still have the mitzvah of Krias Shema Shel Arvis, because it is meant to be said at the time when people normally go to sleep, which is night, the time when people normally stand up, normally wake up, and that is the daytime. What exactly is Krias Shema? What do we read? That is the subject of halacha beis. What does he read? Shalosh Parshas, 3 sections, portions of the Torah. Elohim, they are the following: Shema. One begins with the word Shema. The second one begins with V'haya Yerushamaya, and the third one begins Vayomer. Magdimim likreis Parsha Shema. And we say first the parsha which begins with the word Shema. And then why did that the first one initiation by Yichud Hashem? Because we say Hashem Elokeinu Hashem, focus on Hashem's oneness, the Ahavasai, the Talmudai. We used to talk about Haftas Hashem Elokecha, the Talmudai. We speak about the need to learn Torah, Shahua Ikar Agadol Shakal Talabay, which is obviously the great foundation and the great essence and core on which everything depends. And then we turn to V'hayim Shemaya, which Sheish Batzivui al Shar Kol Mitzvahs, right? V'hayim Shemaya is called Mitzvah. This is called Mitzvahs, right? When you have to that part of Shema reminds us or insists and commands us to fulfill all the mitzvahs. Parshas Tzitzis and Vayemer, which references only one mitzvah, the mitzvah of Tzitzis. Shegam Hi Yesh Batzivu is Krias comment is why? Because the mitzvah of Tzitzis is mantizkeru, so that we can remember all the mitzvahs, right? We know that Tzitzis, which we'll learn more about in Hilchis Tzitzis, but right, Tzitzis is Gematria 600 and the 8 strings and the 5 knots. So the mitzvah Tzitzis reminds us of all 613 mitzvahs. We wear it around ourselves constantly like a mitzvah, which is a lavush. The mitzvahs enclose us and wrap us and envelop us in the kedusha. So Shema again is the oneness of Hashem and the love of Hashem, which is motivating us, like we just learned in the last Perek of Sefer Ma'ada, that the love of Hashem is what motivates us, and that's why it's fitting for V'ahavta Shema V'ahavta to come first. Then we talk, and also learning Torah, which tells us what the mitzvahs are. Then we go to V'haya, which tells us generally that we have to do all the mitzvahs, and then Tzitzis, which is one mitzvah, which reminds us of all the mitzvahs. Halacha Gimel Afal Pishein Mitzvahs Tzitzis Neheges Balayla. Even though the mitzvah of Tzitzis is not fulfilled at night, we wear tzitzis at night, but it's not part of the mitzvah to say Deiraisa, because the mitzvah says it with the isamai, so you have to see the tzitzis, and by night, absent artificial lighting, we wouldn't see the tzitzis, so there's no mitzvah there, and so we would expect that the Kiddush Mashal Arvis we would omit the parsha of tzitzis, and nonetheless, we do include that mitzvah, that parsha as well at night, because it mentions as a side point, almost in discussing tzitzis, that we should remember that the Eibush Tok Tzad Mitzrayim or mitzvah has Yitzias Mitzrayim B'Yom HaLeilas, we're all familiar with from the Nusach of the Haggadah, is a mitzvah to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim not only by day but also by night. Shedamar L'man Tizker Yashem Tzeis Chameres Mitzrayim Kol Yemei Chayacha, in order that you should remember the day you left Mitzrayim, all the days of your life. And as we all know from the Haggadah, the words Yemei Chayacha would have been sufficient if the mitzvah was only during the day. The added word Kol Yemei Chayacha teaches us Yalahavi Haleilos, that the Leilos, the nights, are also the time when we're obligated to remember Yitzias Mitzrayim. So because we anyway are going to say the mitzvah, the Vayemer of Tzitzis by day, and that includes in it the mention of Yitzias Mitzrayim, and we have to anyway say mention Yitzias Mitzrayim by night. So we chaparain, and we don't omit Vayemer by night in order to be Getzel also the Yitzias Mitzrayim. Krias Fleish Parshas He Hanikes Krishma. So here at the end of Halacha Gimel, we have finally concluded our definition of Kriyas, and the reading of these 3 parshas in this sequence is what we mean when we say Kriyas Shema. And this is the subject of the 4 Perakim of Hilchas Kriyas. Halacha Daled. Some details in how to say Shema. HaKriyas Kriyas, one who reads Kriyas Shema, when he finishes the first pasuk, we insert pasuk, as a phrase that's not actually in the Torah. We say quietly, Boruch Sheim, not in Torah, that in that spot, in Shema. But you say Boruch Sheim, blessed is Hashem's name, the name of His honor, and His kingship for forever. And then you return we continue the next pasuk in your natural voice, in your normal voice, that you should love Hashem your God at Seifa until the end of the parasha, the end of the Kriya. Why is it that we insert this phrase, this pasuk, these words in to Kriyas between the pasuk Shema and the pasuk V'ahavta? This is a tradition that we have received. That at the time when Yaakov gathered his family, his sons, around his bed in Mitzrayim, when he was passing away, when he was preparing to pass away, Tzivam, he commanded them, instructed them in how to behave in the future. And he encouraged them and gave them, um, uh, tried to energize them. Yichud Hashem, to maintain their clarity and their commitment to and their awareness of Yichud Hashem, the oneness of Hashem, Al Derech Hashem, and the ways of Hashem. As we know, the Aviv kept all the mitzvahs. Al Derech Hashem, Shalach Ba'Avram Yitzchak Aviv, the path of Hashem, which was walked by their father and by the grandfather and their great grandfather, Avraham and Yitzchak Avinu. And he asked them, Yaakov did, he asked his sons, he said to them, Bonai, my sons, Shema yesh b'chem paslus. Maybe there's one amongst you who has some deficiency in this area, in this commitment, in this clarity. Now, the Rambam doesn't mention it, but this concern that maybe there was a deficiency, it was provoked by the fact that Yaakov Avinu wanted to reveal to his children the time of Mashiach, when Mashiach would come, and the Shekhinah indicated to him that his sons, that he should not do so, and so his first thought was, or suspicion was, maybe the reason why he's not being allowed to reveal secrets that he knows that he wants to share with his children, maybe he's not being allowed to do so because they're not sincere, they're not perfect in their commitment to Eibishter, there's some deficiency. And so he asked them, maybe there is a deficiency, but the Rambam doesn't mention that whole part of it, and he just goes straight to the concern. And is there one amongst you who does not stand with me on the matter of the oneness of Hashem? Like Moshe Rabbeinu asked the Yidden, maybe there are amongst you a man or a woman whose heart has turned today from being one with Hashem. All of our forefathers, who are the Shvatim, I guess, not all of our forefathers, but all of the Shvatim, the fathers of the Jewish nation, of each of their Shvatim. And it says we incarnate always have l'shloish. That's why I'm stammering over here, because really you don't call the Shvatim Avos. Avos are only the three fathers who are the fathers of us all. But the Shvatim, each one is a different kavan of Hashem. Each one is a father of their family and their tribe. So they weren't fathers, but they were the Shvatim, the Shiftei Kod, the sons of Rabbi Yaakov Avinu. And they all responded. They all said, Shema Yisrael, V'ayalakina V'ayachad. Hear Yisrael, here referring to their father. Hear us, Yisrael. Yaakov, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem our God, Hashem Echad, Hashem is one. In the Kalimah, in other words, they were saying to him, Shema Mimenu, hear from us, hear our words, Avinu Yisrael, our father Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, we are with you. It is clear to us, we are all committed, and we all declare that Hashem our God is one. Pasach Hazakim V'Amar. So Yaakov Avinu responded by saying, he said, Boruch Sheim in his gratitude to Hashem and in his belief, he benched the name of the Eibishter. So this praise of Hashem that historically was uttered after our Shvatim, the Shvatim said, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and Yaakov Avinu followed that up with a special praise of Hashem. So we do the same. We echo that praise of Hashem by saying Baruch Shem Kvei Malchus Elul. Halacha Hey, Hakeidah Krias Shema Mevarach Lefoneh Ula'achareha. Krias Shema involves not just the actual Krias Shema, but there's a bracha before it and there's a bracha after it. A bracha Yishen and a bracha Achrena. Vayoyim Mevarach Shtayim Lefoneh V'achas La'achareha. During the Krias Shema of Shachris of the day, we say two brachas before Shema and we say one bracha after Shema. Balayla, the Krias Shema by night, the Krias Shema Arvis, and the Baruch Sheim Lefoneha, U'Shtayim Lachara, we say two brachas before and two brachas after. That is the brachas we say in Ma'ariv, and the brachas we say in Shachas. The Rambam is going to lay them out in the next few halachas. Halacha Vav, What is the bracha and what is the first bracha that we say that is linked with, that is preparing us for Shema during the day? So after Yishtabach and after Baruch and Kaddish, when we start the Birchas Krishma, that bracha is the bracha Yitzer v'Cheshach Shalom, and all that Kaddish Baruch Sheim all of those things that we said, that's all part of the first bracha of Birchas Krishma by day. Bracha Shniya, the second bracha is Ahavas Elam, Ahavtanu, that we say leading up to Shema. Then we say Shema, then we say Shema, V'Hafta, V'Haya, V'Yemer, until we get to Emes. And then the word Emes is actually not part of Shema. The word Emes is the first word of the bracha Shalachara, Emes, V'Yatziv, V'Nachan, and so on. Bracha Rishena Shel Plana B'Layla, we say before Shema by night. Ma'ariv Aravim, that is the bracha that we say right at the start of Ma'ariv, that ends with the words Ma'ariv Aravim. Shniyala, we have a second bracha before Shema by night. Avas Elam Beis Yisrael Amcha Havta L'Chulu, leading up to Shema. Then we say Shema and Hafta V'Haya V'Yimer Ubracha Rishena Shel Achara. We say two brachas after by night. The first one begins with the word Emes. The Emunah, of course, we don't, as we're going to learn soon, we don't interrupt between Shema and the word Emes, because Hashem Lekechem are the last words of Shema, and then we go straight into Emes. So we make sure not to separate between Hashem and the word truth. Hashem is, we go straight into Emes, but you should know that word Emes is actually the start of the next piece of davening, which is the bracha after Shema. Shniyala, the second bracha after Shema of Ma'ariv, begins with the word Hashkivenu. Now, a little to the substance of the Nuschos, and that we're going to get into this much more in detail in Hilchas Tefillah, but the Nusach HaTefillah was a little fluid throughout the generations, and so a lot of the brachas and a lot of the tefillahs, it's important to know the substance of it because the specific wording was able to be a little flexible, but you have to make sure to have the substance correct. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what is the substance of the bracha Rishena Shel Fanah. Bein b'yom bein b'layla, both by day and by night. What was the substance? What was the topic, the subject of the first bracha of Birchas Krishma, both day and night? It has to be, first of all, first rule in the flexible wording, but you have to start with the word Baruch and you have to end off with Baruch Atah Hashem and a siyum. The other brachas, as is the halacha when it comes to brachas that are linked in a chain in a sequence, they don't have to begin with the word Baruch, but they do have to end with a Baruch Atah Hashem in order to qualify as a bracha. Brachas Elohim Sharkal brachas Rochos V'Fikol Yisrael Ezra HaSefer Ubeis Dinai Tiknu. So the actual phrasing of the brachas, of these brachas and all the brachas which are accepted and familiar to all Yidden, established and formulated by Ezra HaSefer and his Beis Din. We are not permitted to do less than those brachas, and we're not allowed to add to those brachas. Even though we said before that there's some flexibility, but if the bracha is supposed to be sealed off, ended off with a bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, we are not permitted to, in our formulation, not include the word Baruch. If there was a bracha which you were supposed to say Baruch, you're not allowed to not say Baruch. If it was a bracha which Ezra HaSefer and his Beis Din established that it's not supposed to end off with a Baruch Atah Hashem, we are not permitted ourselves to do so. If Ezra and his Beis Din established the formulation, the nusach of the bracha, that it does not start Baruch Atah Hashem, we are not permitted to begin with the words Baruch Atah Hashem. When they did say we should start with Baruch Atah Hashem, we are not allowed to formulate a bracha which does not begin with the words Baruch Atah Hashem. The general rule is any person who deviates from the template which Chachamim established for a bracha is mistaken, and he must return, you must go back and say the bracha again, in accordance with the template that Chazal established. The words he used the word for matbeya, because in those days they would strike, they would take a piece of metal and they would press the shape of a matbeya into the template of the coin into the metal, and it was only valid if it had that form, or had a certain validity if it had that appearance. And there was some flexibility in there, but you have to make sure to have this matbeya, this form of currency, which Chachamim established for the bracha. If somebody failed to say the words or to formulate his bracha as emes v'yatziv in the morning bracha, or he failed to use the word emes v'munah by the evening bracha, he has not properly fulfilled his mitzvah of saying the bracha of Kriyas, which is the problem, the deficiency in his fulfillment of the mitzvah of Kriyas b'chal, as we'll learn. Higni bracha shniya bracha rishayna, bein b'layla, bein lefanea, bein lacharea, yatza. If we ain't say the brachas, even though we just said that the substance of the bracha itself and the template of the bracha itself cannot be fiddled, cannot be changed without, if you do change it, you're not yetza. The sequence of the brachas is b'diavad, not ma'akev. It does not disqualify the person's tefillah or the person's shema. And so if he said the bracha, the second bracha first, by day or by night, and he did this to the brachas before Shema or the brachas after Shema, he's nonetheless fulfilled his obligation to say Shema, because there's not a seder the brachas, and we'll learn that that's true generally, but that's not true of Shemona Esrei, and that's the halacha that you have to make sure the brachas, the 18, 19 brachas of the 19 brachas of Shemona Esrei have to be in their proper order. But here, that is not necessary. It's necessary lechatchila, but it doesn't disqualify your Shema. B'shachris, pasach yetzer siyim ma'id baravim lo yatsa. So now we are learning a detail of which is that we started off the bracha correctly. Yetzer which we said was the opening of the bracha, but you ended the bracha accidentally with Ma'irav Aravim, with the Ma'irav ending. Lo Yatza, that disqualifies the bracha, and he has to go back and say the bracha properly. Pasach Ma'irav Aravim, V'sim B'Yetzer Yatza. But if he began incorrectly, he accidentally began the bracha of Ma'irav, V'sim B'Yetzer, but when he reached the end of the bracha, he already said it correctly as the morning bracha of Yetzer. He is Yatza. He is Yatza. Right? Because it's Haylach Acharachitum. On brachas, we look at how did you end it off. What was the ending? End strong, you end correctly, you're good. Be'erev, in the evening, again, we find the same halacha. Pasach might have if he began with the evening brachas correctly as he should, but he ended the bracha using the formulation of the morning bracha yetzer lo yatza, he has not fulfilled his obligation. But pasach yetzer, if he began incorrectly using the morning formulation, the morning words, the same might have, but he ended off using the evening formulation of Ma'irav Haravim Yatza, he is Yatza, he has fulfilled his obligation. Shakol HaBrachas Hilchis Acher Chasimasam. When it comes to a bracha, we can categorize, or we can judge a bracha by its ending. Halacha Tes. Zeh Zman Kriyas Shema B'Layla. When? Okay, so now we've discussed that we need to say Shema, and what exactly is Shema. We've discussed that Shema is also the brachas before and after, and now we turn to when. When do we say Shema? So what Ezra is man Shema B'Layla? When do we have to say Shema by night? Mitzvah Mishnas Yitzias HaKechavim Ad Chatzi Halayla. The proper time is from when the stars come out in the sky, from when evening falls, until midnight. But if he missed midnight and he delayed his Shema, and he read Shema before Amud HaShachar, Yotza Yedei Chayvasa, he has fulfilled his mitzvah of Shema. Now Amud HaShachar, we know as the sun rises, there's a lightening of the sky that happens before the actual orb of the sun breaks over the horizon, and those in halacha, those are two different milestones. breaking in the ending of the night, the beginning of the morning, and he has to say Shema Shal before Amud HaShachar, before the light. We're not talking about the sun breaking the horizon, even before the light starts to break. So if he did it before then, so if that's the case, why did we initially say that you have to do it between Tzeisak and Chavim, when the stars come out, and Chatzais? So this is Mishnah, and Rambam quotes it here, Lahalacha. It's Kadei Laharchek Ha'adam min Hapshia, because a person might negligently, he might say, I have a lot of time, so I won't say Shema right away. And meanwhile, he'll get tired. It's midnight, it's 1 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock, he falls asleep, and he totally misses his Shema. But if he knows that he has to do it before Chatzais, so he's not going to let himself drift off and say, oh, I'll probably wake up before Amud HaShachar. Instead, he will say Shema first, and he'll avoid violating the mitzvah, meaning missing out on Shema, even accidentally, which essentially would be negligence, because he could avoid it. Halacha Yud. Excuse me. So here we're going to that gray area from when the sky has already begun to lighten, and the sun's effects are noticeable, but the sun itself has not yet breached the horizon, which is called Neitz HaChama. So if he reads Shema of the night before, the sun is already the lights already come up, even though the Neitz HaChama has not yet occurred. Lo yatsi yedei chivasai, he has not fulfilled his obligation. Ella in Kain haya onus. He is not yetza, but we do make a exception if he was an onus, if the circumstances were such that he had no other option but to do it in that way. Again, shikar, for example, he was intoxicated and he passed out and he was sleeping. Right, it wasn't a pshia, or maybe if it was a pshia, but it was much earlier. I guess that's a more complicated question. But the point here being that he did not have an opportunity to do it before, and he woke up and it was already after Amud HaShachar, before Neitz HaChama. So even though under normal, if he just didn't get around to it, we would say he's not Yetza, but because he was passed out, so he's considered an Oinus, and he is Yetza. Or if he was sick and he didn't have the strength to do it earlier, so he couldn't have done it earlier. So even though the next day is beginning to approach, and everybody can see the signs of the light, because the sun has not yet peaked over the horizon, we allow it. We say that he's Yetza, and he has not missed his Shema. However, someone who is saying Shema at that point, so if he would ask us, well, do I say Hashkivenu? Hashkivenu literally means lay us down to sleep, which is obviously not going to happen at this point. The sun is coming up. He's not going back to sleep, or at least it's not the time when people normally do go back to sleep, and therefore he does not say the bracha of Hashkivenu. Now, that settles the normal case and the extraordinary case of the Zman Kriya Shema by night. What about the Zman Kriya Shema by day? What is the proper time for saying Shema in the daytime? Properly, you should say Shema before the Neitz HaChama. Kedei sheyigmar likros ulevarich bracha achayna im haNeitz HaChama, in order to finish the last bracha with Neitz HaChama. And this is why this period of time between Amud HaShachar and Neitz HaChama is complicated, because what we really want to do, and we will get to this more in detail in Hilchos Tefillah, but we want to daven as soon as possible out of our eagerness to connect to the Eibishter. It's called Vasikin. Even till today, many people have the custom to daven Vasikin. You want to daven right away, the first opportunity. What's the first opportunity? It's going to be Neitz HaChama. As soon as the sun is up, the new day has begun, and you can daven Shachris. Now we're going to learn that you want to do Kriya Shema right near your davening, to be masmich, to put adjacent Geula L'Tefillah. We end off Gal Yisrael, as we all know. Gal Yisrael, he who redeems Yidden, and we want to go straight into Shemona Esrei. So we want to time it so that we finish Gal Yisrael right before Neitz HaChama. So obviously we can't start Shema after Netzach Hama if we want to finish Shema before Netzach Hama, at Netzach Hama. So when do we start? We start anytime after Alois Amud HaShachar, and we time it to finish the final bracha afterwards together with the Netzach Hama to begin Shemona Esrei. B'shir Zeh, the amount of time of this beginning of Netzach Hama is Kamay Iser Shah Koidem Shatala HaShemesh. It's about 6 minutes before the orb of the sun is fully visible over the horizon. However, this is not the beginning and the end of the time. This is the beginning of the time. Is Amud HaShachar, and because ideally we want to do it by nights, but if you delayed and you weren't one of the Vasikin, and you instead you read Shema, you did Shema a little bit later after the sun's already up, you're still Yitzei Dechevasei Sheinasa at Seif Sholish Shoyis Bayoim L'Misha Avar Ve'icher, because the proper time for Shema extends till the end of 3 halachic hours into the day. For somebody who transgressed, he calls it transgressing, even though you didn't miss my Kishma, but you missed this opportunity to say Shema in this way, and that is 3 hours into the day is about is a quarter of the day, right? Because the day is 12 hours, so a quarter of the day has passed. You're about halfway to Chatzos. So this is when you look and say what says Man Krishma, what says Man Krishma. This is says Man Krishma. 3 halachic hours after the beginning of the day. Sorry, not the final halacha. We've got 2 more. Halacha Yidbeis Misha Higdim V'Kada Krishma Shachar Achar Sha'Allah Amda Shachar. Somebody who said Shema early. He said Shema Shal Shachris after Amud HaShachar. Why is it called early? Because he's not finishing it with Netzach Hama, he's finishing it earlier. He has fulfilled his obligation, and under pressing circumstances, so really you're supposed to do it at the end of the period of time between Alis HaShachar and Netzach Hama. If you finished earlier Yetzah, he's saying here, and Ilchatchila, you could, even if you know that you're going to finish earlier, if it's a pressing circumstance like Shayamashkim Watzis Laderech, you had to wake up to join to travel. And in those days, we're talking about traveling doesn't mean sitting in a car or in an Uber to the airport. Traveling meant getting on a camel and traveling with a caravan. You couldn't be late because you had to go with them for safety or for guidance, for to know the way, and to travel with people that have the food and the water. It wasn't an option just to leave. And it's important. We're going to learn later in Hilchos Kishma that kavana is so important that when you're not able to be mechaven, you're not really able to say Shema. So you can't say Shema while you're bumping along the way on your camel and keeping an eye on, and fully focused on staying with the group and all the distractions and preoccupations of the traveling. So if you find that you're leaving between Amud HaShachar and Netzach Hama, and you can't wait till the end of that period to say Shema, so you could as soon as Amud HaShachar passes, you're able to say Shema, even though you're finishing before, you're finishing before Netzach Hama. Now we go to somebody who is not doing it early, but rather he's doing it late. He read Shema after 3 hours of the days have passed, 3 halachic hours of the day have passed. Even if he's a victim of circumstances and he had no other way to do it, there was no way for him to do it earlier. He has not fulfilled the mitzvah of saying Kriya Shema Bizmana. He has the schus of reading Torah, of saying a pasuk in Torah. And although he's not saying it in the proper time, and he's not Yetzah the mitzvah of Kriya Shema and its time, Kriya Shema Bizmana, he still does say the bracha before and after, because whenever you say Shema, you always say the brachas before and after. Even if you have delayed and you're reading after 3 hours have passed. he nonetheless so he was not Yetzer. So this is a now that we've learned that, that can be a motivation to be extra careful to say Shema Bismana. Kishma Shal Arvis is easier, but Kishma Shal Shachar sometimes comes a little more difficult, and we have to be careful not to be flippant about it, to say Shema as soon as we wake up. And because of we learned today how important that is. It has the Achdus Hashem, it has the love of Hashem, learning Torah. It reminds us of all the mitzvahs. It instructs us to do all the mitzvahs, and it is key to our avodas Hashem, our avos Hashem, and the mitzvahs that flow therefrom. So let Mazel Tov for beginning a new sefer. An encouragement and chizuk in Shema properly, saying Shema Bismana, and may we be zeicha to the Yitzias Mitzrayim. Kol Yimei Chayecha, we say in the Haggadah, is Havi L'Meis Mashiach. According to the Chachamim, that Kol Yimei Chayecha teaches us Havi L'Meis Mashiach. May everything we do have the effect of bringing us to the days of Mashiach. Take it with me. Thank you. See you in the next Perek.